Okay guys, this is the Brown Haired Maiden. We're going to play this at 54 beats per minute. Then afterwards we will break it down to its individual elements and talk about each one line by line. So to give you something to play along with until then. Once you're able to increase your speed, I have another video at 68 beats per minute and help you out with a play along. So here we go. Brown Haired Maiden at 54 beats per minute. 1, 2, ready, play. Okay, whew. Hope you out catching your breath on that one. So that's a Brown Haired Maiden at 54 beats per minute. When it starts off on a half beat. It's a 2/4. So when you're getting the metronome, click 2, ready, play. Well, before you get to your second beat, you're going to play your low A into your throw on D. And it's pretty straightforward. There is an echo beat on then that first measure. It's a throw on D to a C. And what I've always been told is when you look at your 16th notes and then the notes that are dotted for that, if you look at the very first measure, you have a throw on D, which is an 8th note, which is dotted, therefore it gets half as much value. So I've always been told to more dot, less cut. Cut being the little flag at the bottom there, turning your the C on that first measure into a 16th note. So you want to come off of it not as quick as you would with a grace note, but fairly fast. It is a 16th. So more dot, less cut. So when I say that, that's what I'm meaning is hang out on that note a little bit longer, and then when you come to the cut, get off of it as quick as possible. Moving on down through the measure. So the first line in Brown Haired Maiden is a low A to a throw on D. You have a C, which is a 16th, that cut we're talking about, and your first grace note is going to be a G down to a B, and then it goes down to your echo beat, low A, everything down, back up to a obviously low G, back up to a low A, back to a throw on D. And most people do not stay long enough on this throw on D. It is an actual quarter note, so you got to hang out there for a full beat. That's all by itself. So the first two measures on the Brown Haired Maiden. So that throw on D with the in that second bar there is a or measure. I'm not really good at the whole reading the music stuff. But anyway, it is a full beat. So hang out on that throw on D. And then your next grace note is going to be your E grace note. Down to a low A, back to a throw on D. And as far as that line is concerned, that's usually where people get tripped up if they don't spend enough time or value on that second throw on D. And then you got your E grace note down to a low A, back to a throw on D, and then it continues on with a G grace note, F, D, double high G, back to an F, high G, F, E, another echo beat. We're down to the low A. It's just a matter of just tapping down, This is a low A, back to an E, and then finish that line up with your double high G. And now once you come off that double high G, once again, you've got a cut note into a dot, and that goes from the F to the high A. So when you're coming off that very last measure on the first line, when you come off that double high G, you're going to come off as quick as possible down to your F, back to your high A, and then you're going to hang out on your high A a little bit because it has twice as much value as, or even more than that, than the F. So coming off your first line, your double high G, be sure to hang out on the high A, and then you go into your double F. And rest of it's pretty straightforward. From there on out, you're just going to keep repeating low A, full quarter note, and throw on D following that on the second line. We're on the second line now. That low A is a full quarter note, and then you go into a throw on D, a dotted throw on D, so you hang out a little bit, and jump up to your 16th cut note, which is an E, and then quickly G grace note on F. And that is pretty much the only two trippy parts we got. The hanging out long enough on the throw on D on the first line, and then hanging out on your low A on the second line, second bar, throw on D, hang out, and then go to your E, and then quickly grace note, G grace note on F, and then we're finish it off with a double high G, E, quarter note, throw on D. You're going to hang out there for a full beat, and then your strike on D is going to finish up the second line, and if you note, you got your two dots, which means we're going to repeat. So that strike on D gets half a beat. It's an eighth note, and the other half picks up with the eighth note low A on the first line, and we're going to be repeating that. So that last bar on the second line, so that strike on D only gets half beat. It's an eighth note, and you're going to pick up the other half on the low A on the first line, and you play it all the way through a second time. So the second time you're coming through, you're on the last bar on the second line. You get your throw on D for a full note, strike on D for a half note, it's an eighth, and then it's going to continue down to the third line, and then you got your another double high G, eighth note, and then quickly, once again, you got your cut and your dot. Following that, third line, first bar, F, high A. So coming off the last bar on the second line, playing through the first bar on the third line. So once you come off that double high G on the third line, quickly do your full F, just for a split second. It's a 16th note, and then hang out on your high A. And then you get your double F, back to a high A, and then now we're merely repeating the majority of the second line. So on the third line, it's just low A, throw on D, dotted, E, cut, F is an eighth note, and all they're doing is adding that D in there for another eighth note, double high G, F, high G back to an F, E, echo beat, double high G. And once you get the third line down, you basically just continue to repeat that for the fourth and the fifth line. So starting on the third line, we're going to play it, and we'll show you how that it just keeps repeating, it keeps repeating itself. So once you get that down, how it will play out, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Third line, coming off of the strike on D. and just keeps repeating itself over and over again. So you basically already understand how the tune goes just by taking little sections out of it. So now, the trap is what I call it. So if you come down, if you'll notice the beginning of the 4th line and beginning of the 5th line, and the same with the beginning of the 2nd line. So the 2nd line, 4th and 5th line, they all come off of that double high G with a F/16 dotted high A. And you play it that way. Even after you play the moving over the double high G, even on the 3rd line. So technically, you're playing it for the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th line. You're basically starting off exactly the same way. But when you get to the last line, the 6th line coming off the high G, it actually reverses itself and becomes a dotted high A to a G. So coming off of the 5th line with a double high G, and then it finishes the tune out. So that's the track right there. You get used to playing and then on the last line it swaps it up for you, and you end up having to play a. So that's the trap, and just keep running it back and forth and you'll finally get it. That would be the Brown Haired Maiden. And if you have any questions, give me a holler.